A stakeholder or stakeholders, as defined in its first usage in a 1963 internal memorandum at the Stanford Research Institute, are those groups without whose support the organization would cease to exist. The theory was later developed and championed by R.Edward Freeman in the 1980s. Since then it has gained wide acceptance in business practice and in theorizing relating to strategic management, corporate governance, business purpose and corporate social responsibility. A corporate stakeholder can be affected by the actions of a business as a whole. The term has been broadened to include anyone who has an interest in a matter. Applications of the term. Examples of a company's stakeholders. Types of stakeholders. Any action taken by any organization or any group might affect those people who are linked with them in the private sector. For examples, these are parents, children, customers, owners, employees, associates, partners, contractors, and suppliers. People that are related or located nearby. Primary stakeholders, usually internal stakeholders, are those that engage in economic transactions with the business. Secondary stakeholders, usually external stakeholders, are those who, although they do not engage in direct economic exchange with the business, are affected by its actions. Excluded stakeholders, those such as children of the disinterested public, originally as they had no economic impact on business, now as the concept takes an anthropocentric perspective. While some groups like the general public may be recognized as stakeholders, others remain excluded. Such a perspective does not give plants, animals, or even geology a voice as stakeholders, but only an instrumental value in relation to human groups or individuals. Company stakeholder mapping. A narrow mapping of a company's stakeholders might identify the following stakeholders: employees, communities, shareholders, creditors, investors, government, customers, owners, financiers, managers. A broader mapping of a company's stakeholders may also include suppliers, labor unions, government regulatory agencies, government legislative bodies, government tax-collecting agencies, industry trade groups, professional associations, NGOs and other advocacy groups, prospective employees, prospective customers, local communities, national communities, public at large, competitors, schools, future generations, analysts and media, research centers. In management, in the last decades of the 20th century, the word stakeholder has become more commonly used to mean a person or organization that has a legitimate interest in a project or entity. In discussing the decision-making process for institutions, including large business corporations, government agencies, and non-profit organizations, the concept has been broadened to include everyone with an interest in what the entity does. This includes not only its vendors, employees, and customers, but even members of a community where its officers of factory may affect the local economy or environment. In this context, stakeholder includes not only the directors or trustees on its governing board but also all persons who paid into the figurative stake and the persons to whom it may be paid out. Therefore, in order to effectively engage with a community of stakeholders, the organization's management needs to be aware of the stakeholders, understand the wants and expectations, understand their attitude, and be able to prioritize the members of the overall community to focus the organization's scarce resources on the most significant stakeholders. For example, in the case of a professional landlord undertaking the refurbishment of some rented housing that is occupied while the work is being carried out, key stakeholders would be the residents, neighbors, and the tenancy management team and housing maintenance team employed by the landlord. Other stakeholders would be funders and the design and construction team. The holders of each separate kind of interest in the entity's affairs are called a constituency. So there may be a constituency of stockholders, a constituency of adjoining property owners, a constituency of banks the entity owes money to, and so on. In that usage, constituent is a synonym for stakeholder. In corporate responsibility, in the field of corporate governance and corporate responsibility, a major debate is ongoing about whether the firm or company should be managed for stakeholders, stockholders, or customers. Proponents in favor of stakeholders may base their arguments on the following four key assertions. 1. The value can best be created by trying to maximize joint outcomes. For example, according to this thinking, programs that satisfy both employees' needs and stockholders' wants are doubly valuable because they address two legitimate sets of stakeholders at the same time. There is even evidence that the combined effects of such a policy are not only additive but even multiplicative. For instance, by simultaneously addressing customer wishes in addition to employee and stockholder interests, both of the latter two groups also benefit from increased sales. 2. Supporters also take issue with the preeminent role given to stockholders by many business thinkers, especially in the past. The argument is that debt holders, employees, and suppliers also make contributions and take risks in creating a successful firm. 3. These normative arguments would matter little if stockholders had complete control in guiding the firm. However, many believe that due to certain kinds of board of directors structures, top managers like CEOs are mostly in control of the firm. 4. The greatest value of a company is its image and brand. By attempting to fulfill the needs and wants of many different people ranging from the local population and customers to their own employees and owners, companies can prevent damage to their image and brand, prevent losing large amounts of sales and disgruntled customers, and prevent costly legal expenses. While the stakeholder view has an increased cost, many firms have decided that the concept that improves their image increases sales, reduces the risks of liability for corporate negligence, and makes them less likely to be targeted by pressure groups, campaigning groups, and NGOs. Stakeholder theory. Post Preston Sachs used the following definition of the term stakeholder: a person, group or organization that has interest or concern in an organization. Stakeholders can be affected by the organization's actions, objectives and policies. Some examples of key stakeholders are creditors, directors, employees, government, owners, suppliers, unions, and the community from which the business draws its resources. Not all stakeholders are equal. A company's customers are entitled to fair trading practices, but they are not entitled to the same consideration as the company's employees. The stakeholders in a corporation are the individuals and constituencies that contribute, either voluntarily or involuntarily, to its wealth-creating capacity and activities, and that are therefore its potential beneficiaries and/or risk-bearers. Quote, "This definition differs from the older definition of the term stakeholder in stakeholder theory that also includes competitors as stakeholders of a corporation." Robert Allen Phillips provides a moral foundation for stakeholder theory in Stakeholder Theory and Organizational Ethics. He defends a principle of stakeholder fairness based on the work of John Rawls, as well as a distinction between normatively and derivatively legitimate stakeholders. Real stakeholders, labeled stake owners, genuine stakeholders with a legitimate stake, the loyal partners who strive for mutual benefits. Stake owners own and deserve a stake in the firm. Stakeholder reciprocity could be an innovative criterion in the corporate governance debate as to who should be accorded representation on the board. Corporate social responsibility should imply a corporate stakeholder responsibility.